Welcome to this session. In our previous session, we had discussed about the case study Android operating system. In this particular session, we will study about the iOS operating system, which is a very popular Apple's operating system. This particular case study pertains to MCS-203 operating systems of postgraduate diploma in computer applications. So whenever we talk about the iOS devices, the three devices that strikes in our mind are iPhone, iPad, iPod. So these three devices use the iOS operating system. So you can see these devices range from smartphones to tablets. These devices are very much popular, and Apple's iOS is one of the most happening operating systems of the world, with a range of 18 to 26% of market share. In our previous discussion, we had studied about the Android operating system, and in 2015 the market share for Android operating system was around 80%. So that was noted. So during these 3 years, the market share of this iOS operating system has enormously grown. So right now, when we see the statistics of previous year, it is touching 26% of the market share. So it is the world's second most widely installed mobile operating system after the Android. So let us learn some interesting facts about the operating system. This Apple iOS is the second most popular mobile operating system after the Android. As of June 2021, you can see the market share for this Apple iOS is 26.3%, and the Android is ranging from 70 to 73%. The first version of iOS was released in June 2007, with the iPhone debuted in the market. Some estimates show that since their launch is in 2007, iOS products have been responsible for more than 1 trillion in revenue for Apple. So you can see the revenue part, 1 trillion, it touches 1 trillion revenue for Apple. If we see the stats of the iPhones, more than 1 billion consumers currently use iPhones. Since its initial launch, more than 1.9 billion iPhones have been sold. Apple shipped 206 million iPhones in 2020. iPhones have 65% share of smartphone sales in the US itself. You can see in US 65% population use Apple phones. So 6 of the top 10 most sold smartphone models in January 2021 were designed by Apple. So we had seen the stats of the iOS and we had seen the stats of the iPhones. So day by day, the market share of this iOS is increasing. You can see the graph that is shown on your slide. Continuously, the graph is rising. Right from 2008, you can see, till 2020, it is touching 1 billion. iPhone is touching 1 billion users, consumers. So let us talk about the features of iOS which has contributed to its popularity. iOS is the operating system for iPhone, iPad and iPod, and also it works with several other Apple devices also. So it is completely based on Mach operating system, which is very much popular for Apple's desktop. The operating system which runs Apple's line of Mac desktop and laptop computers. This Mac OS is also very much popular among the Apple's machines, that too desktops and laptops. Apple iOS is designed for easy, seamless networking between Apple products. There will be a good kind of networking, seamless networking among the Apple devices if we use the Apple iOS. This iOS supports extremely good features like multitasking you can do. It allows multiple tasks to be executed concurrently on the mobile device. This feature allows various applications to run in background like notifications. You can see audio, video, Bluetooth, apps, updates and other kinds of things. So there is another interesting feature called as the springboard feature. This particular springboard feature is used for managing the home screen. Gesture recognition is the another striking feature of iOS. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth and support for VPN is possible in iOS. Access to Apple Store, that too an exclusively app store for this Apple phones, iPads and iPods. And we have support for integrated search. Integrated search in the sense that it allows files to search simultaneously. So this particular thing is possible along with iOS. And the other thing, very interesting feature for the iOS is the Siri. It is an intelligent personal assistant feature which can take voice queries and can give voice responses and recommendations used for setting reminders. Not only for the reminders, mostly people use for search mechanisms. Game Center is there and it is very much compatible with the iCloud. This iCloud is a cloud service provided by Apple itself. So push email service is possible. The sensor interfaces like accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer, there are several sensor interfaces used to listen various events. The browser that is used on iOS is the Safari browser. The front camera and the rear camera is activated for capturing videos facility or else for the photographs. Apple Pay is there. Services like maps, contacts, web pages, messages, location, all these features are possible with the iOS. And coming to the security feature, it is having a wonderful security feature. Very tight security is possible with the iOS. Like face identification is one such feature, passcode, two-factor authentication, even several security features which I will be teaching it towards the end when we talk about the functions of the iOS. HomePod is there, HomeKit, it is the home automation control system that is also possible with the iOS. And CarPlay, this is also a wonderful feature which allows interacting with the iOS during the drive in an automobile, just like a car. So these are some of the features, that two striking features of iOS. So let us see the evolution part. Straight away this iOS came into existence? No. iOS was first introduced with iPhone, which is released in June 2007. And that time it is not called as iOS, however, it was named as Apple's iOS, Apple iOS. Apple's iOS first software development kit was released in 2008. The initial release, as I told you, was not directly named as iOS, however, it was called as iPhone OS, which was later changed to iOS in 2010. From 2010 onwards, we are calling all the versions, later on versions, as iOS versions. So iPhone OS 1 was released in 2008. iPhone OS 2 version as the name suggests, it is the second biggest release of operating system. Right from the year that it has started, it is making an effort to release a new version in every year. So this is the trend that is followed by the Apple's iOS. So iPhone OS 2, as the name suggests, it is the second big release for the iOS, and during this particular release, a conjunction of iPhone 3G was also released at the same time. So OS 2, Apple's iPhone OS 2 and then iPhone 3G, both of them were simultaneously released. And during this particular release, they had come up with the software development kit also. So SDK was released for developers with support ending in 2011. Then comes Apple iOS third version. It came into existence in June 2009. You can see right from 2007 onwards, 7, 8, 9, every year they were releasing the new version of Apple iOS. The next version was named as iOS 4 and was released in June 2010. From that time onwards, you can see earlier it was called as Apple iOS operating system. However, from iOS 4 onwards, they had removed the Apple, and then iOS 5 was released in 2011. There is an error here, the 2011. 6 is released in 2012, and iOS 7 was released in 2013. It supported two new phones by Apple, the Apple iPhone 5S and the 5C. When you come to the next version, that is iOS 8, this was released in 2014, and then iOS 9 2015 and iOS 10 2016. When we talk about iOS 10 version, it included an SDK for Siri, Maps and iMessages. So iOS 11 was released in 2017, then iOS 12 was released in 2018, and then 13 was announced in 2019. As you can see, 2014 we got the version of iOS 14, and currently during this September they had released iOS 15. So the features, the striking features of iOS 15 were enhanced when compared to the earlier versions, and all these features they had kept on the developers platform on the website. So they are showcasing the striking features of iOS 15 on their official website. So as we had discussed during the Android, we had discussed about the layered architecture of Android. In the similar fashion, iOS is also having a layered architecture. So right from the lowest layer, it follows 4-layer approach. So iOS architecture is written in Objective-C language. I repeat, iOS architecture is written in Objective-C language and comprised of 4 layers. So the first layer, you can see core operating system, that is core OS is the first layer. Second layer comes with the services, that is called as core services, media layer and Cocoa Wattage. So these are the 4 layers that the iOS architecture follows. Apps installed on system communicate with the iOS, which in turn communicates with the hardware. You can see a twofold approach is followed over in the iOS operating system. So first of all, the apps, whatever that are used on the iOS devices, those apps communicate with the iOS, that is the operating system, which in turn iOS communicates with the hardware. So this is the twofold approach which is followed. So bottom level layers of the iOS stack are responsible for the basic services. When we go towards the upper layers, they are responsible for providing interface, and graphics designing. So all the lower layers are embedded with the basic essential services. So Apple provides system interfaces called frameworks, which is a package that stores dynamic shared libraries. It contains various resources like header files, supported apps, images, etc. So whenever we talk about the architecture, when we go the internal details of the architecture and when we talk about the layers, we have to remember the frameworks. So Apple, whatever the interfaces that it provides are called as the frameworks. This is nothing but it is a package that stores dynamic shared libraries. So in the iOS layered architecture, the bottom layer, as I told, it is the core OS, that too embedded with the basic essential services, then core services, then the third layer is the media layer, and the fourth one is the Cocoa Touch. Let us see one by one. In the core OS, it is nothing but the lowest layer in the iOS architecture and is responsible for providing the basic low level features, that too very essential services. So the frameworks present in this layer are Security Services Framework, Authentication Framework, Bluetooth Framework, External Accessory Framework, Accelerate Framework. So here, as I told you, here everything is of a framework kind of approach. In this layer, you can see it is providing the basic essential services like the security, authentication, Bluetooth, external accessory framework, and then the accelerate framework. So all these comes into the core services, that to the basic essential services. So when you come to the next layer, that is the top layer to the core OS, it is called as the core services layer. It is the layer at the top of core OS layer. The various frameworks available at this layer are Core Data Framework, Core Foundation Framework, Address Book Framework, CloudKit Framework. Then Core Location Framework, Core Motion Framework, HealthKit Framework, HomeKit Framework, Social Framework, StoreKit Framework. So these are the essential frameworks that the core services network layer contains. Then comes the media layer. The name itself is saying you that it consists of the media frameworks. So this is the third layer from the bottom. It is used for providing audio, video, and graphics features. So when we talk about these kinds of media, obviously it consists of audio frameworks, it consists of video frameworks, and it consists of the graphic frameworks. When we touch the audio frameworks, it consists of the media player framework, AV Foundation, and OpenAL. OpenAL is nothing but it is a standard technology for providing the audio. When it comes to the second framework, that is the video framework, that is AVKit. This interface is used for video presentation. Then comes AV Foundation, and then the core media. So this core media is nothing but it is used to describe the low level data types and interfaces for the operating media. And third one is the graphics framework, which is very much essential. The core graphics framework, which is used for custom 2D vector and image based rendering. The core animation framework is there, it is used for adding animation in apps. Core image framework is there, it is used for gives for controlling video and images. And user interface kit frameworks, that is graphics framework, it is used for designing images and animating content of views. And then there is another framework called as OpenGIS and GLKit. It is used for managing 2D as well as 3D rendering. So next comes the topmost layer, that is the Cocoa Touch layer. It is the topmost layer in the iOS. It is used for providing interactive interfaces to the user. Here there are various frameworks involved. One is the UI kit framework, that is user interface kit framework, which is the very essential feature of any mobile phone. Next comes the event kit framework. It is used for providing system interfaces. It is used for providing system interfaces for viewing and altering calendar related events. So it is a kind of events management kind of framework wherein which completely manages the calendar events. Then comes the game kit framework. Then for maps it is map kit framework. For mails it is for mails and voice over IP it is having push kit framework, and then Twitter framework. So this allows, the Twitter framework allows access to the Twitter service. So coming to the core kernel, so this is the layout of the core kernel architecture. You can see Mach, BSD, and on the left hand side you have the file system. So the green part which is showing on your slide, that is called as the core iOS kernel architecture. So Mach consists of IOKit and the drivers packages, and BSD and files consist of the networking and the NKE. So iOS kernel is XNU kernel of Darwin. So it is using earlier in the Android we had talked about the kernel there also. So it was Linux light kernel. But in iOS, it is XNU kernel of Darwin. So it is using a typical XNU kernel of Darwin. Initially, it was used only for Mac OS and later on introduced as free and open source part of Darwin operating system. So it is a hybrid kernel which supports both monolithic and microkernel mechanisms. So when we talk about the Mac part, Mac manages processor resources such as CPU usage and memory. It handles the scheduling part, it provides the memory protection, it provides a messaging centered infrastructure to the rest of the operating system layers. So the primary part, you can see the Mac, it is managing the complete, the processor management is done, the memory management is done, handling the scheduling part is done, memory scheduling, then memory protection is possible, and then the message, that is messaging part within the process is also possible. The Mac component provides untyped IPC, that is inter-process communication, remote procedure calls, scheduler support for symmetric multiprocessing, support for real-time services, virtual memory support, support for pagers and modular architecture. So it is having a wide variety of functions embedded in the Mac. So the Mac, whatever we are talking here is the Mac, the same Mac that we were talking about, the kernel that the desktops and laptops occupies for Apple devices. Then comes the BSD. Above the Mac layer, you had seen the BSD layer, which provides OS personality, that is application program interfaces and the services part. Earlier we had seen in the Mac part, we had seen the processor management, memory management, production management, then inter-process communication, and then the RPC. All these core things are with the Mac, and then in the BSD layer we are talking about the OS personality, that is the application program interfaces and the other services. The BSD layer is based on the BSD kernel, primarily the FreeBSD. The BSD component provides the file systems, networking concept, Unix security model, then system call support, BSD process model, including process IDs and signals, and then P threads. Those are the POSIX threads. So these are the things that the BSD is concentrated upon. So the main core thing that you have to understand is it is surrounded again like It is surrounded with APIs, services, and it is totally looking after the file systems, networking part it is looking after, security model it is looking after, and then the syscall support. So the functions are distributed among Mac as well as with the BSD. So when we talk about the process management that is there in the iOS, every process in an application is created using one or more tasks, that is threads. A thread represents single path of execution. Then execution of a process starts with a single thread and can later span multiple threads where each thread performs a specific task. Just like a parent thread is associated with each and every process that is activated, and then later on it may be spanning to multiple threads handling specific tasks. All these threads of a single process have same access rights and also share same address space. Here it follows the virtual memory concept. They can also communicate with each other and other processes. Each thread has its own stack of execution and scheduled for execution by kernel separately. iOS has the capability to execute multiple programs parallel, but most of the execution is done in background and does not require continuous processing. The application that runs in foreground keeps the processor and other resources busy. So this is how the process management in the iOS happens, with a single parent thread and later on spanning to several threads with specific tasks. Coming to the another important function, that is the memory management function of iOS. For effective and efficient utilization of memory management is required by the iOS, wherein which the resource needs to be free up when they are not required. While we were discussing the Android, the same thing we had discussed. Low energy, any mobile device, whenever we call it is the best operating system that is working upon, it works with low energy and then with low memory consumption. So here also the iOS is looking for the whenever the resource needs to be free up, when they are not required, it is freeing up the memory. In iOS, memory used by applications is managed by maintaining the life cycle of objects and freeing them whenever they are not required. So here you can see with the limited memory that it will be having on the mobile devices, whenever there is a lag or whenever the processes are sitting idle, obviously they remove them and then they free up the memory. The operating system frees up the memory. So to identify that an object is no more required, it follows a different approach called as object graph approach. So whenever a process, whenever there is an object activated, obviously an object graph is created. The group of objects that are related to each other forms the object graph. So the linkages and then the objects so it is giving a clear cut picture wherein which if the object is sitting idle, it will be activated to free up the memory. In this, objects can be related by the direct reference or indirect reference. So coming to the file management, storage of data, files, applications, operating system files is managed by the file system of the iOS. So the default file system used in iOS is APFS for versions after iOS 10.3. So right now it is following the APFS. However, earlier it was following the HFS plus as the default file system. In iOS, user cannot access file system directly, but they can access it using the application. So there is no direct management with the files. But in Android, when you can see, it is having a different kind of approach wherein which a file manager will exist, and through that particular file manager one can directly go through view the file system also. So the prominent feature of this iOS is it is having the iCloud support, or else we can call it as the iCloud container. So iCloud service allows user to store their documents, photos, files, etc. to be stored in the cloud. So with each and every phone or every iOS device, you can connect it with the iCloud. So users when required can download these from their devices or share with other users. iOS allows users' data be automatically backed up in cloud through this particular service. This feature is available in iOS 7 onwards. iCloud container is used to store files for apps that use the iCloud. So files and folders can be created by apps in the same way as local file folders are created. So as you create the files folders for photographs, videos, and then the downloads and other kinds of things, the same way the iCloud, on the iCloud also, just like the local file container and other kinds of things, the same pattern it follows on the cloud also. So when you sign up for the iCloud, it automatically gives you 5 GB of free storage. If you need more, there is another facility provided by iCloud container, that is the iCloud Plus. So this is nothing but it comes with a kind of charge, like with a kind of pricing. So for example, I was watching through the website and it is showing that in India per month, every month they will be charging for every 50 GB we have to pay 75 rupees, and if at all you want to pay the iCloud Plus services for 200 GB, it is coming to 219 per month, or else if at all you want to have 2 TB terabytes, it is charging rupees 749 per month. So this is how they charge. Otherwise, for each and every account, it is coming up with the 5 GB of free iCloud space. So the other thing is you can't use the USB sticks with the iOS devices. For many years, users have been restricted when using Apple's iOS operating systems, as it prevents file transferring via a USB connection such as a USB stick that we normally use. But during 2019, Apple has released native support for USB, SD and SMB server file transferring on iPad that are using the new operating system's iPad OS. For iOS, it is not present till now, but they had come up with iPad OS for iPads. So in that they had given the provision of using the USB sticks. These features are all made possible with the newly released Files app. One can only hope we will soon see these features expanded to the iOS platform also. But currently we may not be using, we are not allowed to use these USB sticks. So coming to the security, when we talk about the iOS and iOS devices, security plays the major role, and that is the highlighting feature of any Apple phone, Apple iPad or iPod. So this is security is the striking feature. So all iOS devices with an A7 processor or later also have a co-processor called as the Secure Enclave. It powers iOS security features in a hardware, that too in an accelerated way. As you can see, it is having Apple's App Sandbox. This is nothing but all apps running on iOS run in a sandbox to make sure that app can only access data which is stored in the app's unique home directory. This is nothing but each and every app runs which is running on the iOS run in a capsulated way, that is in a sandbox. So if at all the app wish to access the data within that particular sandbox itself which is stored, that can access that particular app's data. Otherwise, if an app wants to access the data outside its home directory, it needs to use services provided by the iOS, like the ones available for accessing iCloud data or the photo album. Therefore, no other app can read or modify data from your app. So there is no interaction between one app's data like sending messages to the other app's data. Each and individual app will be playing in its own sandbox, accessing its own data, otherwise it is not directly accessing the other. If at all it wants to access the cloud facilities, once again iOS will come into picture. iOS provides the facility in order to access the data that is stored on the cloud. Data protection API is present. All iOS versions since iOS 4 have a built-in feature called as the Data Protection API, Application Program Interface. It allows an app to encrypt and decrypt the files stored in their app directory. The encryption and decryption processes are automatic and hardware accelerated. Data protection is available for file database APIs including NS File Manager, Core Data, NS Data and SQLite. So this is once again a striking feature which strengthens the iOS. The other thing is it is having a keychain feature. The keychain is nothing but it is a secure place to store small chunks of data. It is a hardware accelerated secure data storage that encrypts all of its contents. So it is used by the system to store data like passwords, the certificates, but also as if you are a developer, you can have access to this data storage. Your app or app group has its own space in the keychain and no other app has access to it. So this is also a wonderful feature wherein which it has even small chunks of data can be stored using this particular keychain facility. End-to-end encryption is the holy grail for secure data transportation. It allows you to encrypt messages in a way that only the sender and receiver can decrypt. So once again, when you transfer the data through a network, whether it may be Wi-Fi or whatever the case may be, end-to-end encryption is there while transporting the data. So it allows you to encrypt messages in a way that only the sender and receiver can decrypt them and neither Apple or your servers can read the clear text data. So this is a screenshot showing you the developer.apple.com. So it comes up with some sort of dashboard, and in this particular developer.apple.com directly you can't download. However, they had given the download facility and then they will ask you the Apple's login. So with the credentials that you have with the Apple, by using those particular credentials, you can log on to this particular system and you can download the software. But the main problem with the iOS is, as we think, there are certain limitations, the support kind of limitations for the earlier operating systems, or else one particular operating system may not be, the old operating iOS version old may not be suitable to launch it onto a new phone. So there are certain compatibility issues within the devices itself. Otherwise, it is a wonderful operating system. So you can even watch this developer.apple.com and you can have with the Apple credentials given by that particular iOS or Apple. So you can log in and you can download the things. And on this particular thing, they had made available the latest features of iOS 15 which was launched during the September 2021. So it consists of several striking features which were showcased on this particular site with the latest features that it has, the enhanced features that it has over the earlier iOS 14. So with this, I hope you had understood today's concept, the case study, that is the iOS operating system. If there are any kind of queries, you can always send it to me on this email address V.V.Subrahmanyam@ignou.ac.in so as to do. And then my request is that we had given enough material. I had only briefly discussed about the iOS operating system in this particular session during 40 minutes or 45 minutes. However, you can study In order to enhance your knowledge, you can always study our MCS-203 operating systems, that too block 4, unit 4. With this, I'll end up the session. Thanks for your attention. Thank you.